Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Wyndham Hotels and Resorts is some 25 brands, 95 countries, 9,100 plus hotels, and it just opened up the Echo Suites Extended Stay by Wyndham Dallas in Plano, Frisco, Texas. It's the second extended stay Echo property to open in the U.S.
Yeah, here to talk about it and the hotel business and really what's up with leisure and business travelers. It's a great read on the economy is the president and CEO of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, Geoff Ballotti. He joins us from Plano, Texas. Geoff, great to have you here. We have kind of a million questions.
I think he's in one of the rooms in Plano. Is that true, Geoff?
I am, Tim. I slept here last night. It was a great sleep. It's for your viewers watching on YouTube who could see this beautiful room. This is the first hotel that a developer by the name of Ian McClure of Gulf Coast Hospitality is based here in Texas. Texas is a very important state for us. He's building 25 of these Echo Suites by Wyndham. The demand for this type of product is incredible. It's a very comfortable room. If you could see around, I won't give you a tour of my other unmade bed on the other side. But yeah, it was a great event we had yesterday, and it's our fastest growing brand because of the demand that's out there.
Well, tell us about that. Why it is your fastest growing, and what is the demand specifically? Who wants to stay there? Who's demanding like, hey, we need these kind of places? Gosh,
last month I was sleeping up out in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where Spartanburg has received $1 billion of the $9 billion that single state has been awarded of this $1.5 trillion piece of legislation, the most historic piece of legislation this country's ever seen. There are 1.8 million companies that are contracting their workers for projects that are now just beginning to get started, and they're looking for this type of affordable, clean economy accommodation to put them in. I mean, here in Plano, perfect example. There is so much development going on around the community here that I'm in today, and that I'll be this evening with developers looking to build more of these and other brands from the medical profession, from the automotive profession, and a litany of projects that haven't yet begun that are going to begin soon. And companies are out contracting right now for lodging accommodations like this. It really is. It's an amazing. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've never seen anything quite like it.
It's really fascinating. I'm just going back to what you kind of kicked off with. So you're talking about the spending bills and the legislation that's come out of the U.S. Congress, and that is really shaping kind of where you develop.
Exactly. I mean, our teams have identified about 4,000 of the 40,000 projects that will be funded by the $1.5 trillion bill and the $250 billion CHIPS Act bill. Those CHIP Acts, that bill has begun funding projects here in Texas as well. We have this is our 691st hotel that we've opened as a company yesterday. But in Taylor, Texas, Samsung is building a plant where a chip plant where they will spend $17 billion over the next 10 years. And they have thousands of workers right now who are looking for long-term lodging accommodation. They're checking in for 5, 6, 7 months. Some are checking in for over a year. Many are from other parts of Texas and driving home on the weekends. But they want a place that they can cook, as you see behind me, the two stove tops, put their dishes in a full-size dishwasher, have a full-size refrigerator and a great microwave. They want a place that feels like home, and that's what's fueling Carol the demand.
You know what? Does it feel like Waterville, Maine, Geoff? Which is, I'm just now learning, where you and I both went to college. A small school called Colby, where we found ourselves freezing pretty much November through April every year, holed up in our dorm rooms playing beer pong because it was so cold in Maine.
It's Maine.
I know.
They have what 1 month of summer?
Tim, I don't know if you've been back to Waterville lately, but it has been transformed. The development that's going on in downtown Waterville is really impressive to see. And I was thinking to myself, that's why I'm smiling so widely, that Waterville needs an Echo Suites extended stay by Wyndham, because we would kill it in that market, as you know, with parents who did not have the lodging accommodations when we were there that are available today on the new construction around.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, it's an old mill town that, like many mill towns in New England, had fallen on hard times years ago. The college and the hospital, at least when I was there in Waterville, Maine, were the biggest employers. And you can see it, but since I've been there, I graduated close to 20 years ago. And there has been incredible development in the area, really a revitalization of downtown.
Which makes sense to
Yeah.
what you're
Yes.
saying. You're laughing. Wait, how many years ago did you graduate? Or can I not even ask that? I won't
I think
ask.
I'm older than Tim.
We weren't pumping the kegs together. For beer pong.
We were not. No, I've got a few on them.
All right. So I'm curious, though. So exciting growth development. But what happens, I don't know, when the money kind of runs out in terms of the development from like legislation? Do you worry about that you won't have the people who will be demanding these kind of rooms in Plano, Texas, or elsewhere throughout the state?
Carol, that is a long time away. I mean, we are in the very early innings. Less than 20%. I think the figure from the CLB is less than 17% of the 1.5 trillion has been allocated. And even a smaller percentage of that has been spent in terms of shovels on the ground. The projects that you and Tim are probably hearing about and reading about, I mean, you think about big projects in the New York area, like the Hudson Tunnel. Those projects are so far out there. This is certainly helping us from a demand standpoint, demand generation standpoint. I mentioned that we've identified 4,000 of those 40,000 projects so far, and there'll be thousands more that will be funded. But that is a long, long way away. I'm not thinking that far out. It's at least 10 years, and who knows in 10 years what's to come in terms of new projects that could be funded. There is, again, just such a lack of demand for this type of extended stay lodging product, and that's what has our 270 developers who have signed contracts and been awarded territories to build this type of lodging so excited.
So you don't ever say the word right now, recession, based on what you're seeing. Is that fair?
Well, look, I mean, our brands have always outperformed any economic downturn. They did after 9/11. They certainly did during the 08 and 09 great financial crisis. And there was no better outperformance in the industry than the economy and mid-scale lodging brands of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts throughout COVID. Our brands were the very first to recover. Our brands are known as Days Inn by Wyndham, Super 8 by Wyndham, La Quinta by Wyndham, very large systems of thousands of units in this country that have great brand recognition, where franchisees never had to close their hotels because they were able to break even at 30% occupancy, while we're a leisure-based company and 70% of our business is reliant on the leisure travel demand, which is still buoyant and still out there. That 30% that is non-leisure is that essential everyday worker whose office is not a downtown office building that's been closed as it was throughout COVID, but whose office is the front seat of their construction or utility vehicle, or is one of my traveling nurse daughters who have to go to work that are traveling and need accommodation during the week.
Yeah.
Again, our brands have always outperformed.
Right.
In economic downturns. We're not seeing a recession, to your point, right now, and we're feeling very confident about the year ahead.
I think room service is knocking on the door. I'm only kidding. We're going to take a break, do some news, and we're going to come back and continue the conversation. We're going to come back with President and CEO of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, Geoff Ballotti. We're talking with him. He is in Plano, Texas, which, as we just talked about, just opening up another Echo Suites extended stay. They did that, I believe, yesterday. So we'll continue because I want to get a little bit more, too, on curious about the leisure business a little bit and what it says about the consumer, and just talk a little bit more about their model.
Yeah, and also remember there are those other brands, Hawthorne, the mid-scale
so
brand,
many.
Waterwalk, the upscale brand. So, there's a lot of segmentation happening. I want to get right back to Geoff Ballotti, the president and CEO of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. He joins us from Plano, Texas. Geoff, just remind everyone of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts business model. Are you 100% franchise owned and operated, i.e. you guys actually don't own and operate any of the Wyndham resorts and hotels that people see?
Exactly, Tim. And that's what investors wanted to see. When we went public 5-6 years ago, they wanted to see a company that got out of the ownership game. We had owned hotels at that point in time, out of the management game, which we have. We are a 100% franchise company. We're the world's largest hotel franchise company. We franchise about 6,000 hotels here in the United States and another 3,295 countries around the world.
So it's less risky, right?
Oh, completely. Our business model is extremely resilient. As we were talking about in periods of downturns, we've actually been able to, even in periods where revenue per available room might dip, generate more earnings for investors. We have many levers to pull.
So one thing I'm curious about, and the levers, like you have lots of different brands and you hit at different, economic individuals or families or consumers. So I am curious about, I was looking at some of the BI research our team does, and it talked about your U.S. room base, including a larger percentage of lower price economy hotels than other lodging companies. You did, though, buy American Inn and La Quinta, excuse me. And that La Quinta. I know, sorry. sorry, you're right. That really helped boost your mid-scale and upper mid-scale presence and fee exposure. But I do wonder that you do have some exposure if there's a downturn, an economic downturn. So you sound upbeat. We talked about that before, but there is some exposure, right? If especially the lower income consumer who continues to be squeezed, and we talk about that a lot here at Bloomberg.
And your previous guest, Amy, talking about the great prints from three great companies. I think one of the biggest misnomers is that our guest is low income. It is squarely middle class when you look at the demographics of our guests. And those middle class income Americans who are staying at American or La Quinta or Days Inn or Super 8 are feeling better about life today than they were certainly in the middle of COVID or pre-COVID levels. And the consumer sentiment that we're seeing continues to improve. We look at many leading indicators in terms of how we believe the consumer is feeling. Booking windows continue to increase. People have reprioritized their vacations as to the very top of the list. They want to spend their disposable income on vacations more than on any other consumer spend. We're seeing longer lengths of stay, and certainly the ability for so many of our consumers to work remotely on a Monday and Friday is helping drive that trend. And we're seeing demand continue to pick up after the normalization of that revenge travel that we all knew had to normalize. So we're seeing the start of we're heading towards obviously Labor Day, but Memorial Day was very strong. It was up 4% versus last Memorial Day here in the United States. July 4th, AAA reported was up 8% versus where it was versus last July 4th. And we're expecting the same for Labor Day. So these middle-income Americans want to travel. The number one preference for vacations in the United States of America is drive to, and 90% of our business is drive to. And these middle-income travelers are, with unemployment where it is, as we all know, more employed than they were.
Yeah.
And most have more savings in their bank accounts than they did pre-COVID.
So Geoff, help us understand the segmentation, because Echo is for the economy traveler. That's where where you are right now.
Well, and the economy business travel.
Economy business travel. Okay.
squarely blue collar.
Waterwalk
Yep.
is upscale, more upscale. And then you have Hawthorne and mid-scale. Give us sort of the price point for Echo versus Waterwalk.
Yeah, I mean, price points, look, obviously are determined by the markets and the location they're in. But the guest room I'm in tonight, we'll be checking guests in at an $80 price point. That Waterwalk average daily rate could be, depending on the market, double that. And sure, we have lots of aspirational Wyndhams, Wyndham Grands, Dolce. We have a new luxury brand, the Registry Collection, which might have a $300 or $400 handle to its average daily rate. But for that blue collar traveler who's staying at an Echo Suites, it is by and large often being paid for by their employer, and also the demand for this type of product is being driven by how much transient motion there is out there in our country for people looking for short-term and medium-term and long-term accommodations on the relocation front, given the lack of housing in this country.
Hey, one thing I want to do, what's cool is you guys are global. Your second quarter RevPAR, so we're talking about revenue per available room, so key when we're talking about anybody in the hospitality industry. Second quarter RevPAR was flat for the U.S., down 2% for economy hotels, up 7% internationally, and you had a 37% gain in Latin America and 15% in Europe and Middle East, Africa. What can you tell us about kind of the global economy based on what you guys are seeing?
The biggest trend for all of the lodging companies out there for the next quarter, the quarter ahead, and the year ahead is still there is a lot of occupancy still left to recover. Mm-hmm. The occupancy tailwind really around the world, with very few exceptions, country by country, still has room to grow. And so, yes, international was a big bright spot for us. Our international RevPAR, revenue per available room, was up 7% in the quarter versus same time last year. And here, where things normalized, economy, as you pointed out, was down, but it was improving from where it was last year as things normalized, and it was up in some of the other segments. There's great pricing power out there, Carol. I always remind investors that pricing still hasn't caught up in the lodging industry to inflation. I think inflation's up something like 23, 24% pre-COVID days, and our average daily rate is up over only 17%. Our hotels are operated by small mom and pop business owners who feel very confident about holding on to that average rate that they gained during COVID and continuing to improve it. But at the same time, building the business, the base of business on the book with a business transient that allows them in periods of demand to price up.
Geoff, great to check in with you. Really appreciate it. Geoff Ballotti, he's the president and CEO of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, joining us from Plano, Texas. Geoff, be well. You're listening and watching Bloomberg Businessweek.